Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for being with us today. My name is Tara and this is Catherine, and we are here today from Lumara Grief and Bereavement Care Society. And what we're going to do today is we're going to share with you a book review about a story of a little child and their rabbit who listened. You might be wondering why we're doing this, and we're doing this because it's part of one of the projects that we are sharing with you all called Grief in the Classroom Project Book Reviews.
Thanks, Tara. And let me just share a little bit about Lumara. As you see here, we're a charitable organization. We've been supporting bereaved families and individuals for many years from coast to coast. We have camps, we have counseling services, a wide range of offerings, and education. Grief education is a part of what Lumara does. There you see some of the kids who have done an art project at camp. And we have both been with Lumara for a number of years. This project has come out of that desire to contribute to grief education, to support our communities, to support our children. We know that, kids in school, they spend a lot of time in school. Sometimes loss happens there at school, or it's coming to the classroom with what's happening outside of school. And so given that we know that grief is present in our classrooms and it comes in many forms, we wanted to support that. We also know, given the work that we do, that grief is a very healthy response to loss. There's nothing abnormal about grieving. It's not always comfortable, but it absolutely is an appropriate response to loss. And at the same time, we also know that classrooms are very busy places, and again, are important in the life of a child. And so we hope that the resources that we offer in any of the videos in the Grief in the Classroom project series, including these book reviews, will be of value to teachers and parents alike to support our grieving children. So let's do quick introductions. Tara, I pass it back to you.
Thank you. So again, my name is Tara Such. I am a clinical counselor. I've been practicing for 12 years. I've been working with Lumara since 2019 in the capacities of supporting our family camps. So that includes facilitating groups for teenagers or facilitating groups for adults. And I also facilitate grief youth retreats where we have had a variety now of outdoor adventures, mostly taking place on Vancouver Island. And also for myself, in terms of work in grief and loss, I work for a hospice society out here on the west coast of Vancouver Island on Yukilithat territory. And that work includes quite a bit of time going into schools and working with young people who are grieving. Thank you.
You bet. And my name is Catherine Heinel. As you see there, I'm a grief and trauma educator. So this is the world in which I'm immersed on a daily basis. And I've been involved with Lumara since 2016, supporting bereavement support groups, facilitating workshops, going to camp, doing mindful photography, workshops along the way, and just in a variety of ways in which we can support grievers. As I mentioned, that's part of how Lumara is engaged with community, and I'm delighted to be involved in all those different capacities. So without any further ado, we're going to jump into our book. For each book that we review in any of the videos that you watch, we're going to talk about whether the book is grief-informed or grief-focused. As you see there, the grief-informed acknowledges that grief is present in our everyday life. There are endings always. It's not just loss by death, but it can be a move. It can be the end of the school year. All kinds of ways that life has this sense of loss to it. So some books are about that broader perspective, and others are more grief-focused, where it dives a little deeper into a particular type of loss, for example, or the process itself of grieving. So the book this time around is, as you see there, The Rabbit Listened. It is a grief-informed book, so it is tapping into that idea that loss is part of life. And here's Tara, I pass it back to you. Can you give us a brief synopsis of The Rabbit?
I
listen.
would love to. Yeah. One of my favorite books, this book features a young character called Taylor. And basically, how the book begins is Taylor has built this absolutely beautiful, stunning big tower out of blocks, and then a swooping of blackbirds come in and they tumble the tower down. And Taylor is, of course, very upset at unexpectedly losing this tower that Taylor had created, and we sense was quite proud of. And so as the story progresses, different animals come in to essentially kind of share their advice or strategy with Taylor. So for example, we see an ostrich come in and the ostrich says, kind of duck your head in the sand. And a snake comes in and the snake says, how about you get revenge and knock down someone else's tower? And the bear comes in and says, rawr, let's get mad about this. And the hyena comes in and says, let's laugh. And variety of strategies from talk to yeah, all the different ways that you could imagine sort of these personalities of these certain animals, if you were to generalize sort of their approach. And of course, none of this is fitting with Taylor. And eventually, near the end of the book, Taylor is just sitting quietly, and over comes Rabbit, and Rabbit just sits right next to Taylor, and Rabbit doesn't kind of force any unsolicited opinions or advice on Taylor. Rabbit actually just sits there. And when Taylor is ready, Taylor begins to open up. And Taylor actually goes through all of the different stages that the animals had been sharing earlier. And Taylor's just organically and naturally doing this in Taylor's own time. And the rabbit listens through all of it. And eventually, at the end of Taylor's opportunity to share, Taylor comes around to this place of, let's build a new tower and it's going to be great. And so the last picture of the book is this image of the tower, the future tower that Taylor has in their mind around what they're going to build together with Rabbit alongside. That's a brief synopsis of the story.
I just really resonate with, in my own grief experiences, with people telling me how I should be feeling, what I should do, and so often what I needed was my own rabbit who would just be there with me and listen and offer some empathy, as opposed to all of the shoulds. And yeah, we all need a rabbit, don't we?
Yeah, definitely. Yes. Actually, when I read this book, I bring a stuffed rabbit with me. And I have that in the room, whether I'm sharing it with the entire class or individually in a one-on-one session, I have the stuffed rabbit with me.
Yeah. So is there anything in particular that you really like about this book, or who you think it's best served with? I've told you that I really like that it's got this rabbit who's going to offer some empathy. What about for you and your experience in the book?
One of the things that I'm always looking for when I'm choosing books to read with young people is I'm looking for books that a young person can easily see themselves in. And so representation is important to me in terms of diverse representation. And so one, I really love books that features animals, which this book does, because that's easy to kind of meet all populations. And I appreciate that the character Taylor is sort of gender ambiguous or gender neutral. We don't actually know if Taylor is a boy or a girl. In terms of the features of Taylor with the sort of dark hair, like we also wouldn't necessarily say Taylor, like we would know for sure Taylor is, this ethnicity, or like there's just a lot of neutrality in Taylor. So I appreciate that in terms of a young person being able to see themselves in the story, is one of the things that I really like about this book. And I really like that it is very accessible. So this is because it is very much grief informed and not grief focused. This is a book that I choose early on to read with a young person. So it's one of the first books that I read with someone who's grieving, because I believe that it, one, helps us kind of set the stage in terms of normalizing feelings and experiences, sets the stage in terms of let's really explore, who and what is a good listener, and how do we feel safe, because you want that foundation before you're doing any deeper work with a young person. So it's a really solid sort of entry foundational book, I find, for working with someone.
I'm hearing that it also, because it offers the range of emotions, it could also be a book that would support conversations about emotions,
Mhm.
emotional intelligence kind of work, regulation, some of that way too. Is that a fair assessment based on what I hear you sharing?
Yeah, absolutely. Because the great thing about reading books with young people is they are conversation starters about topics that young people, and actually, let's be honest, like older people, are generally uncomfortable with. So it definitely offers this opportunity. So, for example, if you know that this young person's way in particular is around anger, or maybe kind of lashing out at siblings or something like that is a big theme for them, you can kind of stop at those characters or those points of the story and have a elaborated conversation around that. So it really brings in the full spectrum of experience. And then, yeah, you can go a little bit deeper based on what that young person is experiencing in particular, and just open up the conversation.
And you mentioned that this is like an entry book, and so if we actually look at it specifically in terms of age range, I'm gathering this one can start pretty young.
This one can start very young. I mean, yeah, I would start as young as 2 or 3 on this one. Yeah, and I actually, because it is so general, I've actually gone really old with this one too. I've read this one with a 12-year-old as well, and just as an opener, and I'll state, we're gonna read a kid's book for fun. I just think it highlights some good points. So if you'll humor me, everyone loves a good story, sort of that kind of approach. So yes, I would say this has a very wide age range.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Any sort of considerations, cautions, anything for us to think about of why the book might not be appropriate? Is there anything? And not all of the books I know will have that. Some of them are wide open, but let's share what your take is on in terms of that for this book.
Yeah, this is one of the very few books where I would say that there are not any concerns or things to be aware of. As we move through this series, you'll hear me speak to other books in terms of, just a heads up, this book includes that sort of a piece, but this one is absolutely open in terms of all ranges. Yeah.
As you mentioned, a great starting book in to use in the classroom potentially, or in the family. So speaking of classroom or family, using it in the family, you want to share more about these integration ideas and activities?
Yeah, so the first one I have there, which I mentioned already, is reading the book with a rabbit on hand. Of course, young people are very tactile and they love a stuffy, and there's so much comfort in having a good stuffy especially to get you through hard times. So I bring a stuffed rabbit with me when I read this book, and the young people love it. They love to hold the rabbit and listen to the story. A follow-up game, because this book features the towers that looks a lot like a Jenga set.
Mm.
There is an opportunity to do a follow activity using a Jenga set. So one thing that you could do with your Jenga set is you can paint the blocks different colors. And then what you can do for each color is you can assign a theme or a question, and then go ahead and play Jenga with the young person or people who you're with. And as you're pulling a block, you would then reference that color and ask a question. So for example, the purple color could always be someone you trust. The green could be a place where you feel safe. So when they pull a purple block, then they would name someone that they trust. And when they pull a green, it would be a place that they feel safe. And all of these questions are really relevant in terms of increasing what we would refer to as those protective factors for young people. So we're really building that foundation of their support network and what they have available to them. And we're doing this while we're playing a game, which is great.
Right. And with the thought then that as they identify these people or places, then whenever they have a need for
Yeah.
a safe place to go or a safe person to talk to, then A, as a teacher, you know about it, and B, already, and then B, that it creates that capacity within the individual themselves, the child, to be able to tap into that because they've identified it.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. And then of course there's lots of other color opportunities to be totally silly. You know, what's your favorite food or secret talent, or, you know, those kind of like silly fun get to know you questions as well.
Your
Yeah.
favorite animal, the books about animals,
Yeah.
and so just in
Yeah.
general, yeah. So it doesn't all have to be about the tough stuff. You can
Yeah.
there's easy ways to bring levity in, and you know, just again to have it feel safe, because this is learning with safety is, we know, key.
Exactly. Exactly.
So
Um,
you have an art activity.
Yeah, and so an art activity is identifying the support people in your life. And so that would look like handing out a coloring page. Sometimes I like to use sort of a bouquet of balloons or a bouquet of flowers. Um, and then really talking about, you know, asking some questions about how it was that the rabbit listened, and um, you know, what did they do? And is there anyone like that in your life? Who listens in your life? And then you begin to put those names in either the balloons or the flowers, or, you know, whatever handout you've decided to create. And then you fill those in and color them. And they can also be they can be fictional characters. So sometimes when I've worked with young people who really have like very small families, or, you know, very few people left in their life, you know, we've pulled in their favorite characters from their favorite cartoons, or maybe a book they read, or places in nature. You know, maybe they really love the deer that come and visit their yard every day, or the birds, or whatever those beings are. So even when there's sort of a limited number of people, you know, you can bring in other people too, your teachers at the school, coaches, you know, whoever that might be.
Again, anything that represents, I'm hearing anything that represents safety, somebody or something you could talk to.
Yes.
And imagination, we know, is important in how children process their emotions as well. So
Yes.
encouraging that, tapping into the imagination as well. Okay,
Yeah.
terrific. Handout on Lumara website. We
Mhm.
will have for each of the books, we have a handout that reiterates these ideas and activities. Is that?
Mhm.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely. You can find that there. Yeah, print it off, and yeah, please enjoy.
Yeah, so the videos are on the Lumara website, along with handouts, one for each book that we are reviewing in this series. Again, these ideas and activities will be there, and the details on the book as well. So we thank you for your time and attention to this, and we hope that you find this a supportive resource for your classroom and or in your family, or if you're a caregiver of any kind, that there's some value in this for you. Take good care. Until next time, goodbye from Lumara.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.